And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino. We've been very busy here at gameranx lately, and today we're talking about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So this is a game from new development studio Sandfall Interactive. It's an RPG heavily inspired by, well, I mean, look at it. It's like a bunch of things. It's Legend of Dragoon, Persona, Lost Odyssey, and obviously a ton of Final Fantasy. But while it's heavily inspired, they've made a really unique and special game with a new world and new characters you might actually find really interesting. Long story short, to not mince words, it's got a few small weird flaws, but overall, Expedition 33 is an absolute banger of a game. This smaller team swung for the fences and went big. It's a great adventure with heart and challenge and a real unique identity. It's something I'm gonna remember fondly for a long time after playing. Look, if you're sick of AAA game sequels with diminishing returns or endless remakes, this game is your answer right here. I definitely recommend it. Now, before we keep going, just so you know, I've been playing a review copy, and this footage was captured running on PC and is spoiler-free. Aggressively spoiler-free, actually. There's a lot of good twists and turns in this story, so I'm going to try and save that for you. So, speaking of story, just like the overall thing, all I'll say is that for me personally, it is one of the best aspects of the game. It's got compelling characters and a unique situation here. It's this fractured world where the oldest are dying off systematically one age year at a time, year after year. And every year, expeditions, often comprised of the oldest, venture out in their final year to discover more of the world and hopefully defeat the force that is killing everyone, this evil paintress. Now, right from the start, it's going to grip you with this premise, this whole idea, and all the interesting questions it raises. What's it like to live in a world where all old people are dead? What do you do with your life? Do you have children? Do you go out on this seemingly fruitless expedition? The opening section of the game dumps all of this on you, but in a good way, effectively, through strong, focused, cinematic direction, along with great performances top to bottom. Andy Serkis, Jennifer English, who you might know as Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3, Charlie Cox, our goddamn Matt Murdock, and of course, Ben Starr. Now, this epic story focus is great, but it understands it's also a video game, so you quickly set sail and venture across all manner of weird, strange places, like crystallized caves, underwater sunken cities, places filled with weird creature guys, mysterious magical forests, a village filled with all these little paintbrush minion guys. The game's writing does a good job of taking itself super seriously when it matters, and they injected humor in some lighthearted kind of banter style ways that doesn't feel forced or obnoxiously quippy or flippant or anything like that. They've just found a real good balance, and the emotional moments hit surprisingly hard, man. But okay, enough waxing poetic about the story here. The game itself is a turn-based combat RPG adventure. You roam somewhat linear levels, separated by a big overworld map that you traverse through. You run up to enemies, and in traditional kind of JRPG fashion, a turn-based battle kicks off. Now, look, I know, I read the comments. Some people just don't prefer turn-based combat, these types of games. But while it's traditional turn-based here, it also has a layer of being much more active. So as an enemy does their turn, you have the opportunity to dodge, to mitigate some of the damage, or time something perfectly to do a parry. And then you get bonus damage against an enemy. It's usually a big gamble because you can take a big hit if you screw up, but if you pull it off, it usually events to a very powerful counterattack. The thing is though, on normal difficulty, these timings for dodging and parrying are really tight, almost brutally so, especially with the bosses. So yes, it's one of those games with some of the coolest bosses you've seen in a while, but you don't have time to really appreciate them because you're just getting your ass beat, just getting crushed into the dirt. Look, my reflexes are starting to slow down, I guess. I got my ass kicked. And I found this game way more challenging and demanding than I expected. Look, if you platinumed or breezed through something like Sekiro, you'll probably be fine here and just think I'm a baby, but just know that there are multiple difficulty options. Now, the remainder of the combat is awesome. Each party member comes with their own kind of sub-mechanic that gives you layers of ways to mess around and set up enemies for massive damage. One character kind of builds up a meter over time that allows you to then to unleash a special electric attack. One character uses like a kind of system of cards where you can stack and withdraw certain types of elements against an enemy and then cash in the damage when you really need to, depending on what they're weak to. One character leaves elemental stains on the enemies, and a lot more, really. The game does a very good job of seeming pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and slowly unfolding. Like just when you're starting to get the hang of things with your party or a game mechanic, they introduce a new gameplay concept. Actually, pretty substantially far into the game, I was getting my hands on new ways to engage with combat, and I just really like that for pacing purposes. It can actually feel all a bit complicated after a while. Tough to wrap your head around all the characters' own sub-rules. But again, it's worth figuring out, especially if like you're a turn-based or JRPG pervert where you just like stacking and setting up massive attacks and you're thinking 4 steps ahead. You can really tee up some good stuff here. It seems like a good system for that. Now, this plus a simple loot system of different weapons with different elements attached, as well as upgrading those weapons with materials to stick to your favorites, just kind of rounds it all out. You're also getting these certain items to add to your characters that give you bonuses, like starting a fight with 1 extra attack point, or dodges giving you some healing, stuff like that. These have their own levels, and there are tons to find through fighting enemies and exploring and stuff. You also have a free aim attack, which is cool to kind of aim for enemies' weak spots or, potentially blast their weapon away to, get rid of one's attack that maybe you had a tricky time with. I actually wish this system was utilized more. It's really good, but I'd love to see them like flesh it out in a sequel or something. So as your character earns experience and levels up, you can dump points into standard skill stuff like, health, increased attack power, increased defense, luck. You also earn skill tree points to unlock additional abilities, of which you can then bring 6 into battle at one time. Say like an ice spell or an area of effect attack, or maybe debuffing enemies, a heal. There's quite a bit, and the game encourages you to mix them up decently enough. One of my favorites is one of the character fights with stances, and it's all about kind of building the back and forth and which move will then trigger which stance. If you do this move, but if this enemy has a certain debuff on it, that means that then that character will transition to, say, a different stance with more attack power or more defense power, depending on the situation. It really can require a lot of thinking, but in a way that I liked. As someone who doesn't do a lot of good thinking in video games, I think they nail it here. All these systems, all these items, all these stats, my only issue is that the on-screen UI is a little bit cluttered for it all. Like, navigating it is a little awkward, and at-a-glance stuff isn't really perfect. After a while, you just kind of get rows and rows of equipable bonuses that just kind of look like a boring list. I would have actually preferred a less is more approach here, quality over quantity. But I guess on the flip side, there is a lot to equip here for customization or player expression, I guess. Still, overall, it is a good system, and it all encourages exploration. There is a lot of side content here. Holy shit, like, I found myself trying to balance my playthrough with exploring enough to get better stuff, but there's actually a lot of sub-areas to explore, and hidden left turns that may lead you to an optional sub-boss. It's got a fair amount of that stuff, and most of it does not feel like filler or half-assed stuff at all. The only thing I really disliked here, actually, is the platforming. Yes, the character can run, jump, and climb sometimes. It's mostly optional, but it's very finicky and just not good at all. The games sometimes want you to jump to ledges with like these very weak jumps and no real substantial grab system. Walking very, very carefully on very small ledges, your character just slides around. It's awkward. It feels like it's forced into the game. It doesn't really work, and I found it extremely frustrating at times. Also, there's not really a map. Like, there's an overworld map, which unfortunately just has icons and not a lot of names on all of these locations. That kind of makes keeping track of things a little annoying. But like when you're in the individual areas, even if they're somewhat linear with just some branching paths, you don't really have any map of any sort that I could find, which makes things a little tricky in terms of backtracking or hunting for things. You know, sometimes I would take a left turn or do a loop and I would get lost once or twice. Now, the only other criticism I have is that you spend so much time out in the wild world adventuring with strange creatures and seeing magical stuff that I actually wanted to spend more time in the home area where the characters originally came from. That area, that setup is just that good. So I guess that's kind of just a backhanded compliment. Technically, I had a bit of stuttering here and there, Unreal Engine stuff, and some graphical glitches in cutscenes like weird shimmering hair effects, but I've had nothing really super distracting or game breaking. I also had no crashes either. But there's quite a bit of game here. It's finishable in 30 to 40 hours depending on how you play. The game really does a good job of pacing it out right and not overstaying its welcome. It doesn't drag on too long, and you can get more mileage out of it a little bit with all the side content, and there's a new game plus. So it really just feels like they did check a lot of the right boxes here. Oh, also, I forgot to mention the music. It's some of the best I've heard in a game in a long time. Like the main theme and motifs and some of the battle themes, especially the French themed ones, I just catch myself humming them to myself during the day. So I guess that's a sign of success. Look, aside from a few little nitpicks here and there, I get it. I've totally kissed this game's ass, but like, it's new IP. It's heavily inspired, but still manages to feel fresh. It's not super padded or overextended. It doesn't feel rushed, undercooked, or half-assed. It's a single-player adventure with no microtransactions, and it's $50 US. As a video game player, as a video game enjoyer, as a video game purchaser, this is exactly the type of game I'm looking for. So it just hit at the right time for me. Maybe it's gonna hit for you, but this is a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion. And now I wanna hear yours down in the comments. If you were anticipating this game, I'd love to know if you jumped in right away, if it's meeting your expectations. Maybe you didn't hear about it, or maybe you heard me talking about it in videos months ago and I said it looked good and you didn't wanna listen to me. Whoever you are, let's talk down in the comments. Any more questions for me, you can hit me up on social media anywhere, YouTube, everywhere, at Jake Baldino. But thanks for coming around. If this video helped you out, steered your purchasing decision, clicking a like button helps us out. Thank you. But I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Let the ink flow.